Hey guys, welcome. Today we're going to do a different topic. The last ones were all about Maya and Unity, but today we're going to do something completely different, and that is the heads-up display. And how to, well, not necessarily how to make one, but what is the theory behind making a heads-up display or interface in general. This is a perfect example on how not to. So the basics of a heads-up display / interface is to give the player information that he or she needs, right? So, and that's followed by Hicks' law, which is pretty much the time it needs a person to make a decision based on the options that he or she has. So if you have two options, then making a decision is quite simple because you only have two options, right? But if you, in this case, have like, I have no idea how many options you have, like 60 different options to look at things, then it takes more and more time to make a decision based on those options. So this is an example on how not to do it, because this is just awful. There's so much information on this screen that it just makes me cry, to be honest. Just too much. There is a very simple information overload going on, because what do you? I don't even know what's going on here. Well, this is a raid, I guess, and they're fighting a battle, but I don't know what's going on. So lesson 1, it's very simple. Just show what you need and nothing more. So when you're about to make a heads-up display, there are two questions that you need to ask yourself. The first question is it in the game world? And second question is it part of the game story? Right? And then you get this very awesome chart. So is it in the game world? Yes or no. And is it in the game story? Yes or no. If you answer both questions with a yes, then you come to a diegetic component of your interface, or if better, a diegetic interface. If it's both no, then it's a non-diegetic, and yes, and well, you can read, guys. So let's first do the one with where yes is the answer to both. So let's first look at a diegetic interface. The best example there is by far is Dead Space, because this is a perfect example of a diegetic interface. There's nothing there, absolutely nothing on screen that gives us information, or so you would think, except for this bar here. This is our actual health, and this is our energy, if I'm not mistaken. So if there is nothing there, you still get fed information by this part over here. So this is extremely well done, and this is not something you just come up with while you're taking a smoke break or standing at the water cooler or coffee machine, but this is something that needs to be planned out ahead of time and actually be implemented in Maya through Unity or Unreal or whatever you use. So a diegetic interface is part of the world and part of the story. Same goes for Doom 3, for example. The interface here, this is all you need, because this is the ammo that you need. Not mistaken, this is either the health or the armor. No, it's both ammo actually. Sorry, never mind. But it displays everything that you need about this weapon in this small window over here, and this is perfect example again of a diegetic interface. It fits in the story, and it fits in the game world. So, and I mean, this is better than having a 2D element up here in the corner or down here that says, okay, you have so much ammo left. This actually helps you immerse in the game, and actually helps part of the story. Well, not that Doom 3 had a story, but it just helps you get in the actual game itself. Far Cry 2, Far Cry 2 actually did it also really well. Most of the times when you have a map, you just hit a button M, and then you get a full screen map, a 2D map of where you are and where you need to go. It's a bit boring, so they were like, hey, we can do this differently, so they actually added here on the actual screen, and here as well. So this is again perfect example, and this also helps with the immersion of the player. Again, this takes time to set up, and this actually takes some thought behind it and thought ahead. Otherwise, you will not make it. This is not something you'll just make on the fly when you have a good idea late at night and like, hey, I'll just make this really quick. So if you want to do something like this, plan ahead. And this is another one good example actually. I don't necessarily like this one because there's a lot of information again, maybe even too much, but again this helps with the immersion, that you are actually in a cockpit of a ship, and all the information that you need is there, even though again there's a shit ton of information on screen, but it works. Halo is also a good example. This is a diegetic, but not diegetic, it's like a mixture of two. You have the idea that you're inside the actual helmet of the player, of the Spartan, and that helps again with the immersion, because you actually have the feeling that you're actually playing the game as the Spartan, and that the helmet is actually portraying all the kinds of information that you need. Again, this might be a little bit too much, because like stuff like this, for example, the thermals on, do you need it? Probably not. So stuff like this, be careful, even though it looks cool, but this can also give the player again too much options to look at, and therefore he will lose time making the decision. Metroid Prime 2 is a good example as well. This is a 3D-ish interface, or at least it gives you the idea that you're looking through a helmet again. It gives you the impression that you are the actual character. Fallout 3, Windows 3 also did a really good job at it. Again, this is something that takes time to actually plan and make, because this is not something you just make up in Photoshop like, oh, I'm done. But this again really helps with the story as well, and making the game world itself a bit more interactive. So this is really well done. This is a perfect example of, again, a diegetic interface. And then you have the when you answer both questions with no, then you get to a non-diegetic interface, like World of Warcraft, for example, is a perfect example. So the question is it part of the game world? This, no, not at all, not at all. Is it part of the game story? No, not at all. This is just here to actually convey information to the player about their health, about the spells, spell duration, buff duration, chat logs, etc, etc, etc. It's not part of the world, it's not part of the story, but it's just general information to the player. Blizzard is actually really good at designing interfaces. This is, by the way, not the default UI for those who haven't played World of Warcraft. But even the standard UI gives you all the information that you need in a very simple way and very easy to read way. What they learned from World of Warcraft, they actually used again in StarCraft 2. Again, this is a really good example of a non-diegetic interface. StarCraft 2 is a very fast-paced RTS, for those who don't know StarCraft. I doubt anyone doesn't, but for hey. So there is a lot of multitasking that you need to perform as a player. So you got your main stuff here, the actual game is here, and then you got your interface here. By doing this part here is actually really clever, because then you separate the game world from the actual interface. So it just makes it a hard line. Okay, this is the world and this is the interface. It actually works really well. Then you got your map over here, and then in the top right there are your resources. And there's actually a reason why, for example, this one isn't right up there, because then it would be too much information again. And then again Higgs law would apply. But by putting that all on opposite sides of the screen, they actually become a separate part of the information, and that makes it really easy to understand and easy to read, which is even more important. And then to the left here you got some basic information here, like for example our base is under attack, but that is actually not essential. This information is not essential, because it's also done by sound, and again here on the minimap as well. So everything you need can actually be found here, and this part here is just extra, but not necessary. So this is just extra feedback to the player in case he wants it. A different example of a very fast-paced game is Quake 3 Arena. Probably one of the fastest games around. So when you have a very fast-paced game, you want the player to be able to read the information in a split second. So what do? Well, you make it very simple. So you got your health here, you got your ammo, the armor here, and you got your ammo. Done. Score, timer, and that's all you need, because that is the only information the player actually needs. And because he needs to be able to read it quickly, you make it nice and big and nice and simple. So this is a very good example of making a very simple non-diegetic interface where the player needs the information whenever he wants to. For example, if this were hidden all the time, like when you had to press spacebar to get the information, then it would serve no purpose. That would actually be very, very bad interface. So think about what kind of game you are going to make, and does the player always need that information or not. In this case, yes, the player always needs the information, and he needs to access it easily. In case of, for example, World of Warcraft, do you need to be able to always get up to the help menu, for example? No, you don't care. Or the main menu? No, you just don't care. So you hide it, for example, or the I don't know, whatever. So if you can hide it, hide it. But in this case, there is nothing to hide, so everything's on screen, but only what they need. Mass Effect is also a good example of hiding stuff. So you got your basic interface over here, but you can also hide this part over here. The hotkeys, you can actually hide them, which is actually really well done. So you got your very basic stuff on here. There is again a good example of a non-diegetic interface. So you got your health here, you got your armor here, or health here, armor there, sorry, or shields. Your main weapon that you're currently using. I'm not necessarily a big fan of this, because the player is not stupid and he can actually see what weapon he's using on screen. I hope so. I'm still in doubt about this one, but and then you got your special ammos here that you can just pick and choose. Same here for your extra players or your companions in game. You can actually change weapons as well. So when you press this button over here, for example, this weapon, you'll get a pop-up on screen that gives you the option to select a different weapon, because you don't want that to be on screen all the time, because it's just information that you need once in a while, not all the time. So if you can hide it, hide it. It saves you a lot of space on your screen and just looks better. Again, good example as well, League of Legends, but this is also a good example for a different one, and that's a spatial component where the player can very easily distinguish the space between the actual player itself and the enemy, for example. This is the one where you ask questions like, is it in the game world? Well, yes it is, but is it part of the story? No, because it's just extra information to the player. Like, for example, what this dude's name is. I like rice lol. I mean, that's just extra information, and same goes for the health. I guess that is essential, but it's just in the game, but not part of the story. Same for, I think this was Halo's World, I don't know which one. Again, simple information, just a health bar and icon of the player, but also these rings here, so you can actually see where the player, for example, is in 3D space. Also, this one is a good example of that as well. You can actually see here, this part over here, when you have an object selected, it actually highlights it on the ground, so you know what the distance is between you and that object. So this is also a perfect example of a spatial component. This one as well, actually, again, so you actually got these selection circles around beneath the object, so you know where they are in 3D space. It's really good, really helpful as well. You can also do it in a different method. This one, I mean, most of the time when you have something like this really breaks the immersion of a game, because this doesn't happen in real life. For example, that would be really awkward if someone had like a health bar on top of his head. So doing this helps with the immersion by just giving the player hints in the actual world itself. And it's really not in your face that much, so it just helps you with, for example, this one just gives a hint on what you have to do, but it sort of blends in with the actual world itself, so it really helps you to stay in that world as a player, but still as a game designer still being able to give that player information on what he needs to do. Same here, for example, this one here, this also gives the player information on what to do, like, well, kill I like rice, lol. So it gives you information, in this case without breaking the actual immersion. Same goes for this one. This just feels part of the actual world and how the game is meant to be played, because this actually fits the style of these of this style over here. So it really fits it. Same goes for this one. It just fits the overall style of the game, and therefore it's not really that well breaking. So these are very good examples. Then you have one more, which is called meta. This is part of the story but not part of the world. Like these blood spatters, they aren't actually in the world, they're just on the actual player screen. So it's just giving the player extra information about the story, about him dying, while it's not in the actual world itself. So this is also a good example of this. Most, or I wouldn't say most games, but a lot of games use this method, a meta component on the interface, because it makes things very simple to read. Like in this case, you're dying, right? Because of the blood spatters, you're just dying. It's very obvious. Same here, that something happened. So, or a great example as well would be Mass Effect again, where the screen would turn red. It's just a very simple method of giving the player feedback on, dude, you're dying, hide, or do something else. At least you're dying. So, but these are all methods of giving the player feedback. And feedback is one of the most essential parts of an actual game, because without feedback you don't know what's going on in the actual game itself. So this is a really cool method. This is one part of the actual feedback, because the other part would also be, for example, sound. You can also use sound, for example. For example, when you go to Quake 3, this one, when you would pick up a health bubble, you would actually hear a sound, and you would actually see your health increase. So by like 1 minute, you know that if you pick up the health bubble and you would hear that sound, you would know that your health was increased. Same goes for picking up armor. You would hear a very distinct sound that would enable you to associate that sound with, for example, armor increase. So that's a second part of feedback. So you got the visual feedback, you got the sound feedback. You can also do a particle feedback system, like they do here. So you can actually see what the hell is going on by just giving it like a particle animation or an animation in general. That would even give the player a more profound, well, I would say, impact on what happened. Same here, for example, all these explosions that they really give the player a sense of that something actually hit. If there were no explosions, you're like, I think I hit something, but I don't know, maybe, right? So this just helps again with the immersion as well, and also give the player feedback on what to do. This is also great method of feedback. So ideally, as a designer, you want to give feedback on everything with every method possible. So you have your graphics, you have your sound, you have your animations, you have your particles, and all of these make the game good, if at least done well. So there's something to keep in mind when you're making a next game or a next project for school or whatever. Think about the feedback that you're going to give the player, be it graphical, be it sound, be it animation, and ask yourself these simple two questions. So is it in a game world, and is it in the game story? And base your HUD design on the answers that will come from those two questions. So if is it in the game world? Yes. Is it in the game story? Yes. Then probably you want to use a diegetic. Or is it in the game world? No. Part of the game story? No. Then just use a non-diegetic. And so based on these answers, you can actually design your own HUD and make it fit. Just keep in mind though that whatever you use as a method of displaying feedback, make sure that it fits the style of that game, be it graphical, audio, animation wise. Make sure it fits the style, because if it doesn't fit the style, it will just break the immersion of the player and you will just lose them and they will quit. So I hope you found this this small talk about interfaces helpful. Next one will be about modeling a character, and Maya probably a superhero character, male superhero character. So I will hope to see you guys again next time.